Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Yarns with Andy. Today, we're going to talk about PPPs and the short-term thinking in the New Zealand construction industry. Is it a limiting factor? Are PPPs a solution? I'm not sure, but welcome our guest, Vicente Valencia, also known as the PPP guy.
The PPP guy, yes.
Yes, mate. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on the podcast, mate. Like, I'm super excited to kind of dig into these topics. And I think we've been trying to get you on the podcast for a while now, and I'm glad you found the time to make it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Mate, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Well, I've been quite unconventional civil engineer because I've never been an engineer by myself. I mean, I've never been an engineer. I don't know how to say that.
So are you an engineer? You're not an engineer?
Well, if I go back,
Yes.
I've been working in PPP projects for almost 20 years right now.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of PPP experience right
Yes, I've been working in countries like Spain, Greece, Canada, US, some places in South America.
And all in just large-scale PPP projects?
Yes, normally PPP projects tends to be quite large projects because otherwise it starts to be not interesting.
Yes.
Because the due diligence process and the procurement process is quite long, quite expensive. So you have to justify to use a PPP when it's a large project.
Yeah, cool. So just for the viewers who don't know what a PPP is, can you explain to us in layman's terms, with all your vast experience of PPPs, what is a PPP?
Oh, that is a very nice question. I mean, I like to say that a PPP is like a mortgage that you put in a house.
A mortgage that you put in a house?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly. It's the same model.
Okay.
It's like you have somebody that give you a piece of land for you during a period of time, and then you go to the banks and say, listen, I need a loan for building this type of house. I am going to rent all these apartments. I'm going to get this money. And at the end of a period of time that you have negotiated with the client, the owner of the land, you give back the infrastructure to the client. And during the period of the concession, you have been able to amortize, get a return, etc., in your investment. Because normally lenders ask for an equity portion.
Yeah.
And then the rest is financed through debt.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So you come in as a PPP, a couple of companies or one company would come in as a PPP for a PPP.
Yes.
They'd fund the project on behalf of the Crown or the government in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And they will hold control of that piece of land unless and until they have made return on investment via tolls or via different methods of revenue. And then they hand the piece of asset back to the government entity.
Exactly. And you have a limited period of time when you can make all that return. And it at your risk. I mean, sometimes you make money in a PPP, sometimes you don't make any money and you get huge losses.
Okay, so it could go either ways. But okay, so PPPs, right? Why should New Zealand look at PPPs? What's in it for New Zealand?
Well, PPPs, talking about... In New Zealand, there is a lot of conversation right now about the PPPs, the infrastructure gap, or deficit, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, PPPs are not the silver bullet for New Zealand's problems in infrastructure.
It's not?
It's not.
Okay.
It's just a delivery method that is very well suited for certain type of projects. I mean, you cannot use PPPs for every single project, but you can use PPPs in large scale projects. I mean, PPPs are right now being used in countries that are building an amazing, huge amount of infrastructure, like Canada, the US, Australia, UK, and other places in Europe.
Yeah.
So it's a model that is working quite well. It's even being imitated and introduced right now in the Middle East, in Africa, and other places in Asia.
Right. Okay. So we've had in New Zealand, give or take, about 11 PPPs.
Well,
more? From the research we did,
I don't
it's
get
about
the
11.
number. I don't know.
It's
in my head.
give or take about 11, 12. Not more than that. I think it's Hobsonville Point School.
Yeah.
It's NX2, your
NX2,
project,
yes,
where
project.
you spent 6 years on. Yeah.
Yes.
As you were leading that project for 6 years.
Yes.
Yeah. And then there was a couple of others. There's a Wiri prison.
Yes.
A couple of schools that were packaged up into a PPP.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what comes to memory right now. Oh, TG was a PPP.
Transmission Galley was a PPP. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So from all of these PPPs, in your opinion, do you believe we've been successful in our PPPs? Like, is it a successful delivery method for New Zealand?
Oh, that is a question that I mean, I don't have the details of all the PPPs.
All right, let's just talk about NX2.
But for NX2 perspective, it has been a very successful project.
Okay,
We have
cool.
been able to achieve final completion. Our users are super satisfied. We saw that into the different surveys that we did to users.
I'm happy. I've driven up North. It's a beautiful motorway.
It's a clear example of a user that is
Yeah.
very happy.
Yeah.
And we have been able to deliver a magnificent.
And you're not additional tolling me, so I'm even happier.
Yeah, that's true. Well, no toll for now. You never know.
Oh, you never know. Okay,
But
for now I'm happy. It's just that one toll that I've always paid, so
Yeah.
I'm happy traveling up North.
So what we can say is that we have been successful because we have been able to deliver a magnificent piece of infrastructure. It's really amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at all the roads that New Zealand has right now, probably this is the top one or top two.
Are you being a bit biased there, Vincente?
No,
Like,
I'm not.
I don't know.
I do a lot of
It's
road
like-
trips, and when I remember when I arrived to New Zealand,
Yeah,
that was before Waterview Tunnel was built.
yeah.
I couldn't believe, the transportation from the airport to downtown.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought that the taxi driver was just cheating us or something like that.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah, I said, what's going on? I mean,
Oh,
we are
because-
going to the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And
How long ago was this? Was this about 6 years ago?
It was like January 2018 or 2017. I don't remember
okay,
exactly.
2018. So the Waterview Tunnel wasn't open at that particular point in
Yeah,
time.
probably.
So you wouldn't have taken the motorway. You'd have gone through Green Lane or one of the back roads. Yeah, okay. Yeah, right. Through the burbs into the city.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So you actually freaked out.
Yeah.
You thought the
I
taxi
was-
driver was taking the piss.
And then I had some time off, and we tried just to do a little bit of trips with a car, and it was like, come on. I mean, New Zealand, we knew that it was an amazing country. This is
Yeah.
why I call now New Zealand my home. But in terms of infrastructure, we need a lot to improve, honestly.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting point. What would you improve? What would you suggest to improve in our infrastructure?
I mean, there is a lot of conversation about a pipeline.
The pipeline?
A pipeline of projects.
Pipeline of projects. Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
in the Infrastructure Commission website. There's a pipeline of projects. Yeah, we've all seen it.
There
Yeah,
is
there's a lot of talk, of course.
there
There's
is
a lot of talk.
lot of talk and
Yeah.
whatever. But to solve New Zealand problems, and this is my personal opinion after having visited many, many countries, work on them, on massive mega projects, etc., is that you cannot solve New Zealand's problems in infrastructure without a vision.
Without a vision.
You need a vision. You
Agreed.
need a vision as a country for your infrastructure. And let me put you some examples.
Yep.
I go back to Spain. In Spain, we had a vision, and we decided that from the Madrid, that is in the center of the country,
Yeah.
we needed to reach every single point of the country by train, high-speed train. During 20 to 30 years, the country has been building the second largest high-speed train network in the world,
So you start from the
only
center.
after China.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have China, you have Spain. And we are the second largest, not Canada, not Australia, not the US, not Germany, not France, Spain, the second largest. It was a decision that was made like that. Another decision of a vision of a country, also Spain. In the south of Spain, we have a lot of tourists. We want to have a lot of golf fields, clubs, etc. And we have a very important industry in agriculture, but it's very dry.
Okay.
So we wanted to continue to develop that, and we needed water. We could have
Irrigation.
put water from the rivers in the north, that is plenty of rain, etc., or we could have do some desalination. We wanted to have the vision, and during 20 years again, we developed the channels, we developed the salinization plants, etc., to make it possible. And that is a clear example of a vision. If you go to Te Waianga and you see the pipeline of projects, what I see is that
So for those who don't know what that is, that's the Infrastructure Commission of New Zealand. Yeah.
You see a lot of projects, the pipeline, right? But you don't see a connection. You don't see a story. You see a small piece of road over there, a bridge over there.
Yeah.
You see an interchange over there, water plants here, a channel over there, some pipes over there. But you don't see that story, that vision.
That's a very interesting point to bring on.
But let me just, I mean, if you change, I mean, let's put a vision. Okay, think 10 years from now or 20 years from now. What will be the method of transportation that you will use to go from Auckland to Wellington? Are you going to continue to use the planes? Population growth, you will need more planes, more pollutions, a bigger airport, whatever. Or are you going to push for railways, high-speed trains? Are you going to push for a highway?
Yep.
And even for highways, are you going to continue at 100 kilometers per hour, 120, or we go as Germany, no speed limits in our highways?
Like the Autobahn,
Exactly. That is a vision. And you cannot change a vision every 3 years.
Well, it's funny. We do change the vision every 3 years, or 3 or 6,
or 6
one or the other.
or whatever.
We keep changing the vision.
Those are decisions really that needs to continue during the time. And when in Spain we talked for the high-speed rail about a pipeline, it wasn't a piece here, another piece here, another piece here. We were talking about corridors of hundreds of kilometers of high-speed trains.
Yeah,
that is the vision. That is the pipeline of projects.
Yeah.
Having pipeline of separate different, various projects is not a vision. It's not a real pipeline. As an investor in PPPs, I cannot prepare myself and go into a country if my pipeline of projects is a road of 5 kilometers, another of 30, another of 1 kilometer, here a bridge. I have over there just a building, another building. This is a prison, this is a school, this is a justice, whatever.
I mean, that is what's happening in New Zealand right now.
But
you are bang on.
that is a problem.
That's a
you
problem.
need to tell the story. You need to know what corridor you are going to develop. Are we going to go from Cape Reinga until Invercargill by highway, by train? Are we going to continue to use planes? Are we going to then create airports in the south, in the middle of the South Island, in the North Island, etc.? That is the vision.
Yeah.
So first, you need the vision. You need what you want to achieve. Then you create the pipeline. Now, what Te Waianga is doing, just a recollection of projects. But the vision is something that our politicians, our leaders, and even yourself and myself as a citizens, we need to ask, what are we going to be as a country in the future?
How many politicians do you think can answer that question?
I don't know.
That would be an interesting conversation to have with Building and Construction Minister Chris Pink or the construction spokesperson for the ACT Party, Cameron Luxton, and actually asked him, what's the vision for New Zealand?
And I fully agree with your question, because if you look at the political debate right now, it's more PPP yes, PPP no.
Yeah.
Are we going to use alliances? Are we going to use this? I mean, the delivery is maybe an important thing, but it's not the real important thing. The important thing is, what is our vision as a country? Where do we want to go? What kind of infrastructure we want and we need? Because, I mean, one thing is what you need, the other thing is what you want, and the other thing is what is possible. But you need that vision. This is what I'm going to do. And then the delivery method is something a little bit secondary.
Agreed. So while we were talking, my brain's running at 100 miles an hour here, right? And I was just looking at how actually just look at Auckland, for instance, and how it's laid out. We're not multiple circles. We're actually multiple triangles in our road infrastructure. Have you noticed? You go from Manukau all the way to Central City, and then you take the SH20 motorway and come back. That's a triangle. Mm-hmm. Then you got your next triangle, which goes all the way to motorway number 16, motorway number 1. That's another triangle.
Yeah, that's true.
So it literally, the amount of time you take to get from one place to another is significant compared to when you look at cities like England or Madrid. they're all built in circles after circles after circles.
Yeah. Madrid has M30, M40,
There we go.
M45, and M50.
There's an inner circle, there's an outer circle, and then there's an outer circle, and they all branch out, which is like quite interesting. I've always looked at the map and I've thought about it, but I never connected it until you mentioned the word, where's the vision for New Zealand? And I went, interesting. We need more circles, don't we?
Yeah, I mean,
get people quicker.
You
But
can't
then
always to have those circles.
agreed. The landscape of New
yes.
Zealand restricts you from doing that. But yeah, interesting. So, what is the vision for New Zealand, Vicente? What is the vision?
I mean, that will be my vision, but really talking to guys in the infrastructure thing, right? Or in my industry. And I have a 2 years.
Our industry, you mean?
Yes, construction industry. I said, well, Vicente, how you see the country, whatever, I have a 2 years old boy. What I would like is him studying in Wellington, in a university in Wellington, and be able to arrive high-speed train in 2 hours and a half, because that is the distance really, that is more or less Wellington. Auckland is the same distance between Madrid and Barcelona.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
2 hours, 20 minutes, something like that.
So Madrid to Barcelona is the same distance from Auckland to Wellington. So it takes Madrid to Barcelona is 2 hours.
2 hours.
And it takes us what, about 14?
I don't know. I've done the trip twice. I don't know. I think that it was more than 8 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
By
I mean,
car.
I've actually looked at going to Okuni by train. And it takes 11 hours. So, it's Wellington's further away. So I'm guessing it's about 11 to 14 hours. I'm not sure, but...
Yeah, and infrastructure is so important. I mean, you are now in a global economy, even if New Zealand seems like a small island or big island in the Pacific, right? But you compete with the whole world. And having the right infrastructure is, critical to be able to compete. And this is why it's so important. Improving communications, improving transportation. I mean, it enhances a lot the quality of life of people.
Okay, so look at the flip side of things, right? Okay, so we're comparing New Zealand to Spain, New Zealand to Canada, wherever, right? So you look at the population of Spain, population of Canada, and the amount of tax-paying citizens, and compare them to the tax-paying citizens in New Zealand, right? Population of 5 million at best, 2.5 million to 3 million of them are paying tax in a way, sort of form. So think about the amount of cash flow, right? Cash flow, we're restricted. Yeah. Second problem, we're in the corner of the world, and our landscape is completely made up of volcanic rock. You'll know that pretty well.
Yeah.
Being the director of NX2. All right. It's not just volcanic rock, it's streams flowing everywhere.
Yes.
It's extreme ground conditions to build critical infrastructure. Do you think that's a limiting factor for us?
I mean, you have to play with the factors that you have. You cannot change any of what you are saying, right?
You cannot. These are non. This is nature, right?
But the idea of New Zealand being so unique is not true. I mean,
tell me more.
I have heard a lot of times that New Zealand geotechnical thing or geotechnical ground conditions, etc., are the worst in the world. That is not true.
It's not true.
It's not true.
Interesting.
Go and build in Chile. Go and build in Vancouver
Chile and New Zealand are comparable, aren't they?
And you will see what's happening over there. I mean,
it's
a challenging environment, but it's not the worst on the world. And you have PPP projects in Chile and Canada, by the way, when you have transferred all the risk and liabilities to the private partners to deliver the infrastructure. So it's challenging, but with the right procurement, the right methodology, you can do that. Good PPPs when you transfer all the risk and opportunities, by the way, to the private sector.
So you're saying it's possible. What do you reckon we need to change in New Zealand to make that happen?
I mean, I think that the country is taking steps to move forward. You have the new infrastructure agency. I mean, people have recognized that we have a gap and that we need a pipeline.
Well, we've had a gap for a long time. This is
but
not new.
There is a recognition. I mean, there is no way out.
Yeah.
Probably I haven't been in New Zealand for long enough, just almost 7 years. But when I arrived, nobody was talking about that infrastructure gap. Even if for me as a foreigner that have visited and worked in many countries, it was evident. It was evident that after Auckland, there is nothing. It's you have roads that are not like a third world country, but almost there. I mean, one lane per direction with a lot of traffic.
On State Highway
turns
1.
like that,
Yeah.
and then you have
There's
one
sections of that.
single lane bridges. I mean, I haven't seen that in my life.
Oh, really?
First
Single
time
lane
that
bridges
I
on the
met
State
one
Highway.
of those bridges, I said, "What is this?" I mean,
That would be
my
State
wife
Highway
was saying
number
they
one,
would be
mate.
doing a construction theme. No, it wasn't the construction theme. I mean, this is a permanent theme. But yeah, I mean, it was funny.
It's really funny. Anyways, let's take a break there. But so for the viewers, if you've got any comments on what you believe the vision should be for New Zealand infrastructure, please do let us know. That'll make for real interesting conversation. Do you think alliances are costing the New Zealand taxpayer more money than a competitive tender, in your opinion?
Oof, that is a very, very interesting question.
I know it's a pretty loaded one too.
Logically, as the PPP guy, I may be biased.
I know you're
On
biased,
this.
and that's probably exactly why I want your view.
But let me tell you something about alliances.
Yeah.
If you see what the rest of the world is doing to deliver infrastructure, you will see the alliances are only used in New Zealand and Australia. Even if now there are some collaborative approaches in some countries, nothing to do with an alliance like it is conceived in New Zealand. That start to tell you something. Then if you look at
Why is that? Why is that though? Why is that?
Let me just go back.
Okay.
If you look at the leading countries
Yeah.
in the world in infrastructure right now, like Canada, Australia, US, some places in Europe, you will see that the PPP model is being used very consistently. You see now countries in Africa and the Middle East using PPPs on major scale. India, you have the Philippines and other Asian countries using PPPs, not alliances. And look, one thing, I've been designing incentives for a long period of time in all my projects. And people and companies respond to incentives.
Agreed.
You create incentives and you get the results. What is happening with incentives is that incentives are telling you a story behind. Let me put you a real example in New Zealand. I'm not going to talk about what are specific PPPs, but in one PPP in New Zealand, you had a deduction of $26,000 if you didn't answer a complaint from a user in a certain amount of time.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
If you
do not respond to a complaint,
exactly,
you're charged $26,000.
Exactly, in a restricted period of time.
Okay.
You were charged $26,000.
Okay.
If you didn't repair
And
a
this
pothole,
is a complaint from
user.
from the public, a user.
A
Okay.
user,
Yeah,
a user or somebody from the
taxpayer.
public.
Yep.
Exactly. If you didn't answer in X number of days, you can get a deduction of $26,000. If you don't repair on time a pothole, that is a safety issue, just a few $100s. That incentive is telling you a story. The story may be that for the public servants or the agency or whatever, receiving an email from the MP because a user or taxpayer has escalated something is really, really important.
Yeah.
More important than something that is related to safety. I'm not saying that, I'm just vulgarizing that, but this is reality. You have incentives. So what do we do as a private? We make sure that we are going to answer in 5 days, even at the expense of a pothole.
Oh, 100%. Because you don't want to get charged $26,000 and lose lose that from your bottom line.
And that is what creates the incentive. When you are in a competitive process, logically you get the incentives to innovate, to bring lower prices, etc. Alliances have other kind of incentives. Alliances
Collaboration.
is collaboration, is no blame.
Zero blame.
Zero blame. Taxpayers pays, so no problem. And that creates an incentive that is perverse in many times. Alliances can be very useful for, I assume, some projects, but the incentives that alliances are creating may be really, really problematic compared with a competitive theme. Alliances, at the end of the day, is picking somebody in a speed dating contest.
In a speed dating contest?
Exactly. It's the same. You have a few chats, you present here the team, a few PowerPoints, and you are getting married after a spin dating process.
Okay.
Without a due diligence, going into a price, negotiating the price.
It could be a four-way marriage, but yeah.
Exactly. You know that it can be very expensive to get married in a speed dating theme after the contest, just after the contest. It's really
Not
expensive.
before you get married, though.
Exactly. You want just to get along, to get some discussion on prices, on the risks that are transferring, etc.
Yeah.
Again, I'm vulgarizing, okay? But it's pretty much that. And you know what is happening is that you are creating a status quo with that. Because the more expensive the project is, the more money I'm making as the private sector. For the administration, it's also great because I'm not going to receive any calls. The project just blow up in costs. We took a few more years in deliver, but open book basis, here you are. This is the justificative of everything, right? So people get comfortable. People get, why are we going to innovate so much if at the end of the day we do a bigger scope, a bigger thing, we have discovered new stuff, we add a few more of a scope, up, and that is costing you a lot. In a PPP, that cannot happen because it's very, very clear the scope, what you have to deliver. Changes are always complicated to do and takes a long time, etc. And there is a lot of due diligence in the process. You are reviewing all your costs because you are putting your own money and you can lose your own money as an investor.
Exactly.
So you do a full due diligence. The lenders that are going to give you money are going to do a huge due diligence. And the government too has the obligation to do a huge due diligence in your price and your offer, because logically they are going to get married with you during 30 years, more or less. Even
so
50
so that's not the case of the alliance. So if there's a scope change in an alliance, how do you reckon that would go?
Yeah, I mean, you know that alliance by definition, because it's in the best interest of everybody.
Correct.
It's going to increase in scope, etc., etc. Alliances is something very unique and shocking to me culturally, because I've never been in a project that is just in a 5, 6, 10 pages contract, whatever, and it's going to define how $1 billion is going to be spent. As a taxpayer in Spain, that is impossible.
Impossible.
In Canada, trust me, impossible.
Well,
we are
in
going
New
to give you
Zealand-
$1 billion as a private company, whatever, to deliver this piece of infrastructure on this. There is a lot of supervision, etc. I don't know them because I don't have experience working in alliances, how that governance works. But trust me, when you are in a PPP, it's full transparent because there are so many people looking at all your numbers, looking at your quality, etc.
It's private companies keeping a real close eye because it's their money.
It's their money,
And
you can lose
the
your
more
money.
and the more money they lose, the longer it takes for them to get ROI.
Exactly. And one day discussing this topic of alliances, really, that I'm a little passionate of PPPs. And I was discussing this with some members of public servants, etc., in the administration. And I asked one simple question.
Go on.
Will you deliver your home? Will you build your own home in an alliance type of contract?
Ooh,
And
that's
the
an
answer
interesting
was
question.
a clear no. No, because I'm going to go with this. I don't know how much it's going to cost me.
Yeah.
I need just to be sure more or less of the cost, blah, 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 blah. The answer was shocking to me. So why, if you are not delivering your own house, why are you delivering highways, airports, and other infrastructure in alliance? Well, this because we, relationship. And relationships are important. But look, I've been in PPPs over 20 years, and my relationship with every member of my consortium, of the client, other stakeholders has been always great. And in fact, it's even easier because when you have a very clear contract that is very well structured, you know the limits. And you know what in New Zealand people say about, big fences create good neighbors, right? And it's exactly the same. At the end, good contract is a good friend.
So big fences is great, good neighbors.
Exactly.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a problem on a site,
Yes.
the PPP establishes very clearly what are the risks that you are assuming, and those risks are yours. Period. Don't come to me to ask for more money, whatever. If I want to help you with extending the concession period, this, is very clear. The obligations are very clear. Your limits are very clear. Despite that, sometimes you get into disagreements, dispute, etc. But there is a very specific process about what are the risks and opportunities that the private sector has, and what are the liabilities, obligations, etc. of the public.
Okay.
This is why it's much easier to keep relationship, because sometimes you get into the personal space.
So what you're trying to say is just because you're in a PPP doesn't mean you're losing those relationships.
No, never.
Yeah, just like the alliances, when you compare it to alliances, they talk about a lot of collaboration.
Sometimes if you need to keep relationship, you try to be nice.
Yeah.
And nice doesn't mean fair for the taxpayer or fair for the company or fair for the government.
It's either going to be fair, not fair for somebody in that pipeline. Whether it's a PPP or an alliance, it's not going to be fair for somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to go, right, this is not a fair deal for me. It could be the PPP partner, it could be the government. It's saying, oh, this is not a fair deal for me 5 years into the project. Or, we've seen that on Transmission Gully. Yeah.
No, that happens. That happens. But I mean, that is probably the clear example. What I always say, that PPP is a great model. It's an amazing model to deliver infrastructure.
It's
but
an amazing.
If it's done
okay.
properly.
So the reason it's amazing is it because it's efficient?
No, the reason is there are
what's
many
the reason
things.
It's amazing?
I mean, first is the due diligence. Second is the opportunity to innovate. And bring
it's the innovation.
Innovations portion of a PPP is really, really important. And what is happening with a PPP fails, so you have a lot of problems with PPPs, normally is due to a poor procurement process.
Yep.
And procurement process is really important. I see many people willing to do a procurement process of a 1, 2, 3 billion PPP in 6 months. That is impossible. Not only impossible to do it properly, but also you are going to create a lot of conflicts and you are going to leave as a taxpayer a lot of money on the table. And I'm going to tell you a story about one of my last projects in Canada.
Okay.
That it was the new Champlain Bridge in Montreal.
Yeah.
The initial cost of that bridge was between $4 and $6 billion to be delivered.
That must have been a big bridge. Yeah.
That is a big bridge. Probably one of the biggest in Canada, whatever.
Yeah.
And we follow the standard procedure in PPPs, that is 2 years from RFQ, request for qualifications, until financial close. During all that year, we won that project. And I participated in that bid. We used those 2 years to innovate.
Interesting.
And we innovated a lot. And we won because we had the time to innovate, the time to save costs and think outside the box. And you know how we did that bridge? Mm-hmm. We built that bridge in Spain. Spain, we
the whole bridge?
That bridge through the Atlantic,
through
the St. Lawrence River until Montreal. Okay. And we, like a Meccano, built the bridge. That saved, I'm not going to give you the detail, but more than $1 billion.
$1 billion?
Exactly. So,
of a $3 billion job, you've just shaved
from 4 to 6.
Yeah.
We went below 3. So,
wow. That's a huge
and not only
saving.
that, they thought that you could only deliver that in 6 years. We took 4 years and a few months more.
So technically, then the PPP partners then made a fair share of their money because you've delivered it early and you've innovated.
Yeah, I mean,
because you've been incentivized to do so.
As we didn't know what the other consortia were doing, we did our best. We put our margins to the minimum that we felt comfortable, but we won that project. Nice. And that kind of innovation can only be done if you leave me time. And I'm going to take all the risks, even of the storms of the Atlantic. Yeah. That is a risk that we took.
Yeah.
Only if you give me the time to do all the calculations. You know how much time we took in looking where we could build, calling, hey, listen, it's going to be between this year and this year. Do you have capacity to build this massive bridge of billions of dollars? First thing. So you go to Korea, you go to Spain, you go to every single place in the world when they can build something like that. You call, you agree prices, and you put your bid. If you give me 6 months, what I'm going to do is a typical bridge. Here you are, boom, safe. Yeah. Because you are not allowing me time to innovate and bring all these new things, right? And that is a terrible problem that you have with PPPs. In PPPs, you are transferring me a lot of risk. And if you don't give me the time to look innovate at all the risks, 2 things are going to happen. And only 2 things.
Yeah.
One thing is that you as a taxpayer pays a premium, because if you are transferring me all this risk, but I don't have the time to review everything, I'm going to put a high risk premium. Or you get wrong the price and you lose a lot of money. And that is a project in distress, and it creates a lot of grief for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing is there's a lot of innovation in PPP, which you've proven with your track record of saving $1 billion. When it comes to alliances, there isn't a lot of innovation. There's a lot of collaboration, and that's costing the taxpayer a lot more. So in essence, PPPs is definitely the way to go forward.
Well,
yes, no, maybe.
not all the projects.
There it has to be a decent size.
It's well suited, and others that are not.
Okay, so that brings me back to another point, right? See, I understand there's a specific type of project that you go for a PPP, right? New Zealand's track record, NX2, successful project, great PPP. Transmission Gully, not so much. So we've had one success, one failure. Where does that leave us? What's next?
I think that what is next is just to learn of all these two experiences and do it better. It's not that I have seen in some places in the world when they tried PPP, they failed in one project and they gave up. Is about the vision, right? How do you deliver in the most efficient way the infrastructure? PPPs are a good mechanism to do that, right? And you have to continue. You have to believe also in the model. You have to improve, etc. But to improve the model and to bring the top tier construction companies in the world, you need a pipeline.
And for a pipeline, you need a vision.
And you need a vision.
Come back to where we started.
We knew in Spain, we knew that we were going to do Madrid to Barcelona, 600 and something kilometers of high-speed trains.
And we knew that in 2 hours.
In all these years, we were going to have a lot of contracts.
Yeah.
So as a company, foreigner company, you come here and you start delivering this thing. You can invest in the country because you know that pipeline and that commitment, that vision is coming. If you don't have that pipeline, it's really, really expensive to call Ferrovial, to call, Bouygues, Vinci, and all the top players in the world, right?
Yeah.
And say, hey, listen, I have a project here in New Zealand. We are in this corner here in the Pacific. Can you come?
And it's a small bridge.
And it's a small bridge, something like that. It's not going to happen. You need consistency.
It's an 8-kilometer road.
Yeah, look, I was one of the first ACS employees to go to Canada. Yeah. And you start bringing 2, 3, 4, 5 expats, wife, children, education, trips, cars, the office, lawyers, accountants. You need millions of dollars per year just to keep that going. Unless there is a pipeline of projects that can give you reasonably that you are going to win 1 or 2 projects every cycle of 2-3 years, it is impossible for these guys to justify. And what is more, and what I see here in New Zealand is not just that the procurement process tends to be very short, but it's also all the little things. In New Zealand, and I started to be a New Zealander too, we try to do our things our way.
You've been here 6 years, man. You're a Kiwi.
Yes, and we try to do our things our way.
Yeah.
And we are unique, and we are going to do it this way, our own PPP model, because we want our own PPP model. And you say, okay, so you don't have all these big companies able to deliver big infrastructure and close that terrible gap in infrastructure that we have. How are we going to call them?
Yeah.
Very easy. You go to the places that the PPP model, if you're going to use PPP, work, and you just copy it. Copycat.
Exactly.
Why? For all these reasons.
I've always said this multiple times on this podcast. Why are we reinventing the wheel as New Zealand? Let it be forms of contract. Let it be
status quo.
Let it be exactly.
Status quo.
So it's worked in England. It's worked in Spain. It's worked in Canada. Copy that. Bring it here.
Copy that.
But I'll tell you what. Somehow,
don't change anything.
For some reason, that does not happen. It's not the Kiwi way of doing things. We do not like just taking something that works really well and copying it. We've got to make it our own. People are going to give me shit for that. But
logically, there are a lot of stakeholders and companies that are very comfortable with the status quo.
Yeah.
And that is a problem.
Yeah.
But honestly, I've been a bid manager of these, big projects like that.
Yeah.
And when you are called to bid in one country, that you don't see pipeline, you don't see a lot of things, and you start seeing unique things, weird things in the PPP model, you start putting premium or say, I give up. too complicated. This is too risky. The world is too big. New Zealand is too small. There are plenty of work for me to do.
You're just going to move on to the next country that's got big.
So if you want to call these guys, start talking their language, start putting contracts that they understand and they are used to use in other places.
Maybe it's a lack of education. Then how do we then educate the New Zealand group of people that are influencing the PPPs to talk that language?
I mean, New Zealand has amazing professionals. I mean, it's not that they need to be educated, whatever. It's what they need to be provided are with guidelines. I mean, the engineers in Spain, in Canada, the US, UK are not better than the engineers in New Zealand.
Fair.
They are not better.
Okay.
It's just, I mean, it's just clear. We have excellent professionals. We have excellent agencies, etc. It's just what we need.
So why are we then not able to deliver what Spain, Canada doing successfully?
They invested a lot of time. I mean, if you look at the Infrastructure Ontario, that was my favorite client in Canada. They started in 2005, 2007, something like that. And they have been able to deliver in all this period of time, several times, in New Zealand's GDP in infrastructure alone through PPPs.
Wow.
In all this time.
Crazy.
They made a commitment, they started to copy, adapt, etc., and they created that pipeline. So if I see all these projects, I came from Spain, I put an office over there and start bidding. They were talking a language that was easy to understand, a contract that was easy to understand, that I was used to read and used to conceive, and the risk allocations were known, and I was used to that risk allocation, etc. And there was no much innovation in that sense. I mean, it was very easy. They called all the Spanish companies, the French companies, the US companies, etc. And we were all there in Ontario, in Quebec, in British Columbia, etc., bidding for big projects. If you want to do something like that in New Zealand, you should start copying instead of so much adapting.
Okay, there's a key thing. How do we start copying from other countries?
They will start doing that. I mean,
you reckon it'll eventually happen?
Yes, I think that there are good movements. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, I'm not unique to New Zealand. I have a lot of experience in PPP, but there are many other people that have experience in this country. This country is well served with good professionals. That's period. I mean, the only thing that we need...
I think we're fortunate to have that. There's pockets of real good talent in New Zealand.
We have good pockets.
I agree.
And these guys will get a solution to all these problems. But we need consistency. They won't get it right in the first project, not in the second, not in the third. The public, politicians, everybody needs to be patient because we are going to get those projects sorted and that pipeline sorted, etc. We just need to let these guys to work, to get that contract working. I don't know if less involvement from politicians. I don't know. I don't know what is inside those agencies, but they will
government get out of the way. Let the professionals do their job.
No, because government needs to put the vision. And we need to deliver.
Yeah, okay. Establish the vision, get out of the way.
Yes.
And then let the professionals do their job.
Yes.
That's the key message there.
My key message really to everybody is if you want to bring the top tier constructors in the world to New Zealand to close our infrastructure gap, it is totally feasible. It is totally possible. You need a pipeline. You need a contract that they understand. And you need to create those incentives because people react to incentives that can bring them here for the long term.
And more importantly, you need a clear vision on what you want for New Zealand's infrastructure to look like in 50 years from today.
Otherwise, one day you will be bidding for a small building, the other way for a bridge, the other way for an interchange, the other way for 5 kilometers of highways.
Yeah.
That is why it's so important. The Northern Corridor here in New Zealand now is a clear example of a vision. I want to put Whangarei and Auckland together by highway. That is a clear vision. I mean,
it's very
this
clear.
Is an objective.
There's a port in Whangarei.
Yep.
There's a port in Tauranga. There's a port in Auckland. You want to utilize the port in Whangarei more. What do?
Yep.
Get the roads better.
Roads, railways, etc. The vision needs to be there. I mean, do you want to do it by road? Do you want to do it by rail?
However you want to do it.
Exactly.
But the idea is to ensure that you start utilizing the ports of Whangarei and Tauranga more than you use the ports of Auckland.
Yep.
Which is a clear vision. I get that too, and probably everybody gets that.
I agree.
Yeah. Oh man, this has been like a really, really interesting conversation for me. So if you had to sum it up into say 2-3 key points that you'd want New Zealand to take away, just sum it up into 3 points for us.
3 points is PPPs are a great way
PPPs
to deliver infrastructure
Yep.
but needs to be done properly and
Yep.
for the right projects. It's
Cool.
not the silver bullet.
Okay.
That is point number one. The second, if you want to bring good contractors from outside, overseas, etc., you have to be consistent. You have to have that pipeline of projects and be very consistent. And that pipeline cannot be depending on every 3 years cycle. It needs to be consistent because it's a big investment for these companies to come here. And third, New Zealand has all the talent to deliver and close that infrastructure gap, even if we need some expertise from overseas to deliver big mega projects.
That's a phone call away. Yep, agreed. Mate, those are some amazing takeaways for the New Zealand public, the politicians watching it, whoever's watching it, to take away to help implement. But on that note, I wanna like touch on some personal topics that we've.
Okay.
Yeah. Things that you're passionate about. Hey, I like doing this in my podcast. I like because then the audience kind of get to relate to you personally, not Vincente Valencia, the PPP guy or the construction expert. You know what I mean? You are a human being. You've got another side to you.
Yeah.
So you have a newsletter and you're passionate about real estate investment
And
right?
investing in general, yes.
Yes. Tell us more.
Well, the idea of the newsletter was just a way to. I've been always sending messages and doing some kind of newsletter through emails to all my friends, even when I was in university. I love reading and I love writing. So one day we were in a dinner with engineers, architects, highly educated people. And they were talking about investing and what they were doing, keeping their money in the banks, etc., etc. And I've been an investor for a long period of time. In fact, I started in investment banking.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a very weird engineer.
That's why you started the conversation with I'm a very weird engineer. I get that now. Right. Okay. You were an investment banker and now you run PPPs.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
So we were in that dinner and I saw a highly educated people not being highly financially educated people and doing very weird stuff like keeping money in the bank, etc., for savings, etc. And I just started to talk.
Yep.
And I say, listen, things that you can do are these. I'm not gonna give you the details.
Okay.
Otherwise, you will get bored. And the guys were like, "Ooh, well, Vicente, you have to tell that." And I'm a very active guy. And when I see these opportunities, I like just to take them. In 1 month, I prepared an investing course.
Okay.
And I created a newsletter just to start selling that course.
Okay.
And I did it. And I started like for fun. And I have more or less now more than 2,000 subscribers.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
And I send every day.
So the newsletter revolves around investment and something that you're passionate about?
No, it's just about personal stories, motivational, personal growth, and not just investing and real estate. I mean, what I say is that PPP is my expertise, but real estate and investing is my passion.
Okay. So have you been investing all around the world?
Yes, well, I invest in Spain, logically, because...
You're from Spain, yep.
In Panama.
Panama, yeah.
Because my brother is over there and we have a small company.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm investing in New Zealand.
Of course,
I love to do it just to learn, to know people, to make win-win deals, because the win-win deals are the only good deals.
Every time I hear Panama, there's only one thing I can actually think about. You know what that is?
What?
Prison Break.
Prison Break.
Have you seen Prison Break?
No. I don't have TV at home.
Oh man, such a good show. And for people that watch Prison Break, they'll understand the Panama reference. It's it's amazing. Like I love that show. And but no, it's awesome. You've like diversified your portfolio. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done. All right, Vincente, thank you so much for making time for being on the show. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap up?
It has been really a pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
And I hope to see you soon.
Mate. Likewise. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for making your time for being here. It was I love this conversation. Great time. Thank you, Vincente.
Thank you.
All right, mate, let's go.
Oh, thank you.